Hi, this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, coming at you from my beautiful backyard garden, which is a very important part of my health and hopefully a part of your health as well. In this episode, I'm going to share with you guys a presentation that we did, that my friend Dr. Jeff Pierce and I did for the Superfood Gardening Summit that happened online. And this is a presentation entitled literally Gardening for Life, Dr. Approved Strategies on How to Prevent and Reverse Disease Through Gardening, right? Life is more than just your diet. Diet alone does not equate to having good health. If you eat the best diet in the world and sit and watch Netflix on your butt all day and stay up all night binging those series that are so good because you can't fall asleep because it's so good and you just got to see the next episode, right? That's not healthy. We want you guys to have a well-balanced, right, life and have all the pillars of health covered so you guys can have the best health. So in this presentation, Dr. Jeff will first share with you guys the pillars of health, which are basically derived from lifestyle medicine, because he is a practicing lifestyle medicine doctor, which includes diet as one of the categories, sleep, reducing stress, minimizing toxins, all these things. And then secondarily in the episode, I'm going to get into it and show you guys how you can transform your garden to grow even more nutritious crops than money can buy. Also, more importantly, how to grow the easiest crops in your garden so you guys can eat year-round. And then, of course, finally, I'll show you guys the best way to process your fresh fruits and vegetables to maintain the highest level of nutrition in this episode. So next up, let's hear from Dr. Jeff on how gardening can change your life and increase your health for the better.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Pierce, and welcome to our garden. You know, I'm a big believer that growing some of our own food is one of the best things that we can do for ourselves, for our families, and for our communities. You know, it's a gorgeous day out here. The bees are buzzing, the flowers are blooming, but let's go inside so we can get into the details.
All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about gardening for life, doctor-approved strategies to prevent and reverse disease. I am Dr. Jeff Pierce, and I'm going to be joined by the man who needs no introduction, John Kohler, very soon. Let's start with an outline of what we are going to be talking about. First, just a little bit of my background story and how this pertains to today's subject. We're going to talk about a little bit on modern medicine, what's working and what's not working so well, and then what seems to be quite a nice fix to some of the challenges we're having, something called lifestyle medicine, and that will very easily and clearly tie into growing our own food, and specifically 6 ways that we can grow our own food in ways that will improve our health. We want this to be not just theory, but some stuff that you can take home and start doing in the garden right away. And then after that, I'm going to wrap up, and then John's going to take it from there. So just a word on my story. You know, I didn't grow much food when I was a kid, a little bit of here and there, tomatoes, peppers, etc. When my dad would grow garden. But otherwise, I was mostly hitting the books, going to medical school and all that stuff. I couldn't keep a houseplant alive. But then I got married, probably one of the best choices in my life and or best decisions in my life. And my wife said, okay, you're going to learn how to garden because that's what I do. And so we took this plot 10 years ago. Our house is about the whole plot's less than 1/5 of an acre, including the house. And we had some bare patches like this. And then we turned it into that in 10 years where we're growing annual veggies and perennial veggies and fruit trees and fruit bushes. And then another view of the yard over 10 years became this, where we took out grass and we put some more fruit trees, etc. around. And then there's this carport, and we turned it into this, which is a little bit of a greenhouse where we can try to grow some semi-tropical and tropical fruits that wouldn't do so well outdoors where we live in Northern California. Now, you can probably tell from this that gardening is a major part of our life. We grow a lot of our own food. We eat from our garden 2 to 3 times a day, almost every day of the year. We're very thankful for having this opportunity. We live in a pretty mild climate, such that a lot of things will still grow over the winter. And so we're thankful for that. But we found out that growing our own food has ended up being one of the best decisions that we've made for getting as healthy as possible. And I'm going to tell you how you can do that as well. So let's talk just briefly about the current state of modern medicine here in America. I will say that we've done some amazing things over the many years that medicine has been developing, and nowadays, I mean, we've got anesthesia, we have safe surgical techniques, we have antibiotics, we have vaccines, we have so many ways to stay healthy and to get healthy if we get sick, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm a family doctor. I also do high-risk obstetrics, doing C-sections and all that, and I'm very, very grateful for all of the modern advances that we have in medicine. But I will say one of the things that we can do better at is treating and preventing chronic illness. And it's a major thing to talk about because conditions like diabetes and high cholesterol and heart disease and stroke, I mean, they're just super common nowadays. And it turns out that when we try to use just pills and procedures to treat these conditions, we don't really get to the root cause of why we have them in the first place. And I used to think that it was genetics, but it's really mostly our daily habits. What do we do day in and day out? What do we eat? How do we move? How much do we sleep? How do we deal with chronic stress? And it turns out that if we do these, if we work on these areas in a really healthful way, in a smart way, we can prevent a lot of these chronic illnesses. And if we have them, we can treat them and sometimes even make them go away. Put them into remission, as we would say in medicine. So we do have an alternative to the pills and procedures for chronic illnesses, and that is trying to maximize a healthy lifestyle. And very specifically, there's a group called the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which I'm a part of, and they say, let's look at our habits in 6 specific ways. Are we eating a very plant-based diet? Are we getting regular physical activity? Are we focusing on restorative sleep? Are we avoiding risky substances that are harming our body? Are we working on having positive social connections? And are we dealing with chronic stress? And if we work on these 6 areas, it turns out that we have really healthy, long lives. And what I figured out over the 10 years that I've been growing my own food with my wife and daughter is that gardening is health. That all of those 6 areas and more of health that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is talking about is all those areas are encompassed in growing some of our own food. And so I want to break this down and show how I think about the benefits of gardening and how we can, if we're already gardening, how you can take it to the next level. If you're not gardening yet, how you might be convinced that it's a great decision for your health and how to do it in the healthiest way possible. All right, so number 1, eat what you grow. I mean, this is why we grow these lovely tomatoes. We, meaning all of us who are watching this probably, love growing tomatoes, zucchinis, crisp lettuces, luscious blueberries, because we want to eat them. And it turns out that the healthiest food for both us and the whole planet is not created in a lab. It's not raised in a factory farm. It's the stuff that we can grow in our own gardens, which, I mean, talk about how inspiring, how empowering is that the best foods on the planet are foods that we can grow ourselves. And so I would love everybody to think about the healthiest foods on the planet in 7 groups. And when we think about these 7 groups, we realize that we can grow something out of all 7 of these groups. And the more, the better. So number 1 is vegetables. And we have a whole lot of pictures actually from our own garden that we've taken over the years and get to showcase with y'all today. I'm sure you have very similar beautiful looking produce of your own as well. And we're happy to share this. But vegetables, you can see that they're all shapes and colors and types. And they are packed with nutrition, with vitamins, with nutrients, with things called phytonutrients, which are available only in plants. Of course, the fruits, which is probably my favorite part of the garden, fruit bushes, fruit trees. etc. And if we do it right, we can plant fruits that start ripening in the spring and having different kinds of fruits that will ripen through the summer, through the fall, and even, depending on your climate, ready for picking in the winter. And so I'm a huge fan of growing as many fruits as possible. Legumes. What does that mean? Legumes is a group of food that consists of beans, of chickpeas, of lentils, of split peas. And when you put all those together, that is the legume group, and they are awesome in the diet. They're super powerful for their protein content, their iron content, their fiber content. I mean, something like 95% of the American population is not getting enough fiber. And so eating your beans and your lentils, etc., is going to help all of us get our fiber. And they're pretty easy to grow, right? You can grow the bush beans. You can grow these beautiful scarlet runner beans that you see on the left that will grow up a trellis, and the bees, etc. just love those flowers. Or fava beans like you see on the right, which are a bean that would grow early in the spring instead of later in the summer and fall as compared to some of these others. So big fan of the legume group. Don't forget the whole grains. It takes a little bit more space and work to grow something like oats or wheat or rye, but it's possible. And you can also grow things like quinoa and amaranth, which take up a lot less space. And then nuts and seeds is another group that are super important for our health. And so while nut trees do take up a fair amount of room, they will produce for many, many years if you've got the space for it. And if you don't have the space for nut trees, think about plants that you can eat their seeds, like these pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds. Herbs and spices are some of the most antioxidant-packed foods on the planet. So here's a handful of some Mediterranean type herbs, but there are all sorts of herbs that we can grow, and they are so pungent, add so much to our cooking, and they're so good for us as well. And don't forget the mushroom kingdom, the fungi, right? These are things that you can grow in your house with a grow kit, or you can grow in the garden, such as the King Strophoria, which you see on the far right there, also known as wine caps, that will come up year after year as long as they've got some fresh wood chips to feed on. And they will make these dishes that are just totally delectable and delicious. And that's the goal, is to eat out of our gardens as much as possible. Now, if you haven't heard of Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, this is a nice app, not necessarily made for gardeners, but it works because you can say, okay, I'm a gardener. I see in Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, he has all these food groups that are scientifically proven to be beneficial for us, and he recommends the number of servings we should be shooting for every day. Well, if these are so good for us, I want to try to plant these. I want to try to plant the beans and the berries and the cruciferous vegetables, etc., so you can eat from the Daily Dozen every day. Another way that you could look on, well, what do I want to grow in my edible garden, is to think about Dr. Joel Fuhrman's G-bombs. This is a nice phrase that's easy to remember, and he chose this. He's a very bright doc who's been doing this for a long time, and he said, if you think about greens, beans, onion family, mushrooms, berries, and seeds and nuts, that spells G-bombs, and those are some of the most antioxidant-packed, some of the best anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer type foods that we can get. So let's break them down real quick. Number one, G for greens. We should all be growing greens, if at all possible. No matter where you are in the world, there is a green that you can grow. And there's different greens that you grow depending on if it's the cool season or the hot season. On the left is beautiful, beautiful chard. Where we live in Northern California, you just let the plant, you eat all those leaves, and then when it goes to seed, you leave it alone, let it spread its seed everywhere, and then it comes back year after year as long as you let it go to seed. And so we haven't planted chard in years, but it comes back every year, and spring is a wonderful time to be eating chard before it gets too hot. Collards on the right are probably my favorite green. They are such a superfood. The purple ones are the purple tree collards, which are my go-to. They are the best producing green in our yard, where basically they will keep getting taller, 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet and more. And as they're starting to peter out or you need to move them, you just cut the tops off and you plant them, you root them and plant them somewhere else. And so I highly recommend any kind of green, but if you haven't tried growing purple tree collards, give it a try. Going down the G-bombs, acronym B for beans. We mentioned the scarlet runner bean, which is there on the left. It is so huge compared to a black bean next to it. You soak them overnight, cook them, and they make a great hearty meal. And so I'm a fan of planting those. If your climate is mild enough, they will just keep coming back as a perennial. So you plant them and they will come back. We have some of the same runner beans coming back, and they've been in the ground for maybe 4, 5, 6 years. Don't forget those favas that we mentioned as well. And so another part of this G-bombs acronym is O for onion family, and this is some garlic that we picked up. Onions, garlics, shallots, all these things you can sort of plant and forget, other than weeding and making sure they're watered, maybe give them a little extra nutrition, but they're not very hard, compared to growing a tomato that needs some trellising, that needs some pruning, and et cetera, et cetera. Planting some garlic, you can harvest a whole bunch, and then of course dry it, and then you can be eating from what you grew all year round. But the allium family, which includes the leeks and the chives, the garlic, etc., has antioxidants like allicin and quercetin and others, and so big fan of growing those. The M is for mushrooms, and we've talked a little bit about that. They're great resources online for growing on kits indoors or outdoors. The last B is for berries, and everyone's a fan of strawberries, one of the earliest fruits to come. You can buy the June bearing or the day neutral, or maybe a mix of the two, so that you've got perennial strawberries and some that you might treat as annuals, which are typically the day neutrals, and they are superfoods for sure. Strawberries are some of the most nutritionally packed foods out there. If you've got some room for blueberries, give those a try. They have southern high bush and northern high bush, and so whether you are in a place that has really cold winters or not so cold winters, you'll have a blueberry that works for you. And we have some in the ground, but we have most of ours in pots, where we can control that soil pH and keep it nice and low. How they love that acidic soil, and you will be rewarded with just handfuls and handfuls of blueberries. Don't forget the caneberries like raspberries and blackberries, which have their own nutrients and their own benefits. And don't forget also about the less common fruits that you're much less likely to find in your store, like the Pakistani mulberries on the left. That's a big tree that will just give you so many mulberries, and one of the sweetest tasting fruits I've ever had. And we have, I don't know, in our small lot, we might have 50 or 60 small fruit trees, including many in pots, and mulberries is one of my top 3 or 4 on the plot. Elderberries there on the right don't taste anywhere as delicious as the mulberries, but when you cook them down, they have sort of antiviral properties and can help perhaps when you are trying to avoid a cold or a flu, as well as, of course, seeing your doctor if you get sick. Other less common berries that you can plant in your garden are currants on the left and gooseberries on the right. And so you have, by growing all of these foods, you have a wider palette to choose from than what's at your local grocery store, and even sometimes at your local farmer's market, because some of these things, they just don't ship well. You got to pick them and basically eat them in the garden because they'll be bad in a day. And so what a great way to eat a bigger variety. And we know from scientific studies that the bigger variety often means better nutrition and a better variety of fibers, getting down to our microbiome that lives in our large intestine. And the microbiome is king when it comes to helping to maintain our health. The last part of the mnemonic is S for seeds, from G-Bombs, S for seeds. And we've talked about the nuts and seeds are great, and some of the easiest ones would be squash seeds and sunflower seeds. And we've seen from all these photos, they're so colorful, and it's not for just random reasons that they're colorful. Mother Nature is incredibly smart and has come up with a mix of different kinds of antioxidants and other sort of protective substances that are in these fruits and vegetables, and they're associated with different colors. So the great folks at Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine have come up with this nutritional rainbow, and they remind us, eat from the rainbow, make your plates as colorful as possible, and therefore you should be planting colorful fruits and vegetables. Don't just plant red tomatoes, try some orange tomatoes, try some yellow tomatoes, try some purple tomatoes. Same thing goes with peppers and with squashes, etc., and you'll get just a variety of benefits. Okay, so these other components that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine talks about when it comes to healthy lifestyle and how this interweaves with the garden, I'm going to go over those a little bit quicker so that we can make sure that we get to John's comment, because he always has some really awesome stuff to share. So some people who, especially if you're new to gardening, you think, really, is gardening going to help me stay in shape? But it is actually a really great way to get in shape. And Dan Buettner, who worked with the scientists as part of the Blue Zones project, where they looked at the healthiest people in the highest concentrations all around the world. You know, he has a great quote that says, after 20 years of looking at the world's longest lived people, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, the best physical activity there is gardening. And it's because it's when we plant those seeds, and when we go out and water them, and when we go outside to pick the slugs off, and when we go to add more compost, and when we go out to harvest, we're doing all this. We're nudged out of our seats. We're nudged to go do this work every day, multiple times a day sometimes, because we have put our heart and soul into these living creatures that we want to harvest and enjoy the fruits of. And it's different than, I could have gone to the gym today, but I don't feel like it. If I don't feel like going into my garden, perhaps my little seedlings will have fried in the sun, or they would have been, or all of the cherries could be picked in one day by the squirrels, right? And so you got to get out there, and we're making this choice almost subconsciously that, of course, we got to go out and tend to the garden, because that's what we got to do. And so that's why I have this picture of mâche, also known as corn salad or vite, is that how could something so tiny and small really promote physical activity? But it's all of those steps from sowing and seeding to all the way through harvesting that keep us moving. And it burns as much calories on an hour-to-hour basis, gardening that is, compared to going on a hike or going on a walk. And instead of just at the end of the walk saying, okay, great, I did a walk, that was great. But now at the end of an hour or two of gardening, that was great. And you get to walk into the house with, a couple hands full of mâche for your salad tonight. Groups like the American Institute for Cancer Research remind us that gardening is good for cancer prevention. The Department of Health and Human Safety in the United States says make sure that you're getting your 150 minutes a week of activity, and that includes gardening. And it can also include the 2 days a week of muscle strengthening activities by lifting and turning your compost, by moving buckets of compost and soil around, by working all 12 months of the year by gardening if your climate allows it, or if you live in a cold place like Dr. Kim Scheuer, maybe you can garden inside your geodesic dome like she does in Colorado, or even just gardening on your windowsill inside your home in the depths of winter can be beneficial. We want to minimize toxins in our lives to help avoid all of the sort of barrage, as much as possible, the barrage of toxins that are coming at us day in, day out. Some things we can avoid, some things we can't, right? by choosing to use beneficial insects and powerful squirts from your hose of water, you are managing the bad pests in your garden in a much healthier way than dousing them with petrochemical fertilizers, petrochemical um, insecticides and pesticides and fungicides. If you want to avoid a whole bunch of petrochemical based fertilizers, maybe you want to grow green manures like the fava beans that we mentioned earlier. You can cut down before they make the beans, dig them into your soil, and that will feed your soil in a very healthy way. Maybe you're trying to cut back on the couple of glasses of an alcoholic beverage at the end of the day by making a bubbly water with some fresh mint and berries from your garden. So use your garden to help you with making healthy choices, minimizing toxins that come into your body. Same thing would be true with choosing sunblocks that are based on zinc and titanium oxide, which are better for your skin than some of these other sunscreen lotions. All right, so we always need to not forget about how loneliness and social isolation is such a big deal in the United States. And of course, the COVID pandemic reminded us and exacerbated the social isolation problems. One of the big benefits of getting out in the garden is to do it with others. So when I'm lucky, I get to be out there with my wife, even though she tells me, don't put that plant there, and things like that. But the social benefits, of course, are huge. Sometimes we have a huge harvest and we can invite friends over and share the benefits by making a nice dinner with our friends. I recommend that gardeners should make friends with other gardeners because, like our friends Fred and Nicole, they had a huge harvest of mulberries one year, and we had so much fun picking it together and sharing their bounty. I also recommend making friends with people who have big fruit trees that are too busy to pick the fruits. And so my friend Chad had a whole bunch of apples on the ground. I went by, picked buckets and buckets of apples off the ground and made applesauce for us and for him and his family. And not only are we eating healthy applesauce without anything else added to it, but we have the benefits of sharing and the love that comes with that. Or if you don't have a big plot or maybe any plot at all in your home or apartment, join a community garden like the great folks at the Community Seed Exchange in Northern California, where you get to work for an hour or two volunteering, and then they give you free seeds that you can plant, or that perhaps you're working at a community garden where you get a head of lettuce at the end of your sweat equity there. So big fan of community gardens and how they can bolster whole neighborhoods and communities. All right, wrapping things up with sleep, and one after that. Gardening can actually help with our sleep. We really should be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. It's been shown to be really beneficial for things like preventing dementia, and one of the ways to do that is to get out early in the morning for some physical activity. When the sun hits our bodies, it tells our biological clocks, hey, it's morning, time to be awake, and 12 to 14 hours from now, it's time to go to bed. And so it's really important to get out in the morning, get some sunshine, get a little bit of physical activity. You can choose to plant fruits and vegetables that either have high melatonin contents or high tryptophan contents, which is a precursor for melatonin. And these sorts of foods might be able to help us get more regular sleep. And don't forget about lettuce, which has been shown in studies to help with getting more quality sleep. Even as little as a quarter teaspoon of ground lettuce seed a day led to significantly more sleep. But be careful, if you do all of those things, you might just suddenly fall asleep in the garden instead of watering your plants on a sunny day. But I think that ties in quite nicely with relaxing in our garden, and it's important to relax, even though sometimes it seems like there's 100 things on the to-do list, whether it's for our garden or for work or families, etc. Chronic stress is not good for us when it comes to our risk for cancer and for our risk for other conditions. And so it turns out that being outside in your garden, being outside in nature, listening to the bird calls, looking at a beautiful flower, smelling the roses basically helps to lower cortisol, helps us to feel less anxiety, less depression, and we know that that is key for living a long and full life. All right, well, wrapping up, these were the 6 areas that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine says we should focus on for good health. And they're also the 6 areas that I think are very clearly part of growing our own food. And so don't forget to eat from your garden. Get out there every day. It's good for you and for the garden. Make sure you're getting lots of sleep, minimizing the toxins that come into your body. Have those really great connections with important people in your family, and take time to slow down and to smell the roses. So thank you very much for your attention to my part of this talk. I appreciate getting the chance to talk with you. And now, John Kohler, take it away.
Hope you guys enjoyed Dr. Jeff's presentation, where you guys learn more of the overview and why gardening is so healthy for you. Now I'm going to go ahead and drill down in the specifics as I sit in my garden here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So first I want to share a little bit about my story and why I started gardening and eating healthy. So briefly, my story is that I got sick when I was younger. I was hospitalized and the doctor said I might not make it out alive. I mean, that'll change you for sure. I had spinal meningitis, which the doctor said was caused by complement immune deficiency, which is basically he blamed me getting sick on a weak immune system based on my genes. Since that time, I've learned that we have a whole thing of epigenetics and how actually our environment can influence our genes and their expression. So think like that your genes load the gun and your environment, including diet, pull the trigger. And of course, that's what Dr. Jeff talked about with you guys, how to modify your environment so that you can be healthy, right? And that's what I had to learn through the School of Hard Knocks by almost losing my life, coming out, and then figuring out, hey, how can I strengthen my immune system? How can I be stronger and give my body the best environment to live in? So I found eating whole food, plants, minimally processed to maximize my nutrition. And then literally after that, I'm like, hey, how can I do better? Because I'm always trying to improve. I found by growing my own food, I could grow even higher quality food with more nutrition, more phytonutrients than the store could provide. Of course, a lot fresher with more vitality, life force, biophotons, as well as being able to grow things that the store will not provide me, right? More nutritious plants, okay? So my specific focus during all these years has been, hey, how can I get the most nutrition, get literally the best bang for the buck, right? Don't waste calories when I'm eating white bread that doesn't have a lot of nutrition in there. Instead, how can I grow plants that have the most nutrition? And then even more so after growing the best plants, right? How can I maximize the nutrition when I process them? Because that's something that is not often talked about in the gardening or even health space. So for me, gardening is just not like a hobby, it's my lifestyle. I'm out in my garden every single day, working in my garden, doing this or doing that, harvesting things, making things. I was actually making a green juice yesterday, which you'll learn about a little bit later. And I want you guys to, try to make it a bigger focus of your life to garden and make it part of your lifestyle, not just a hobby. Oh, I have a couple tomato plants in the back. No, grow on a bigger scale. Don't like convert your whole backyard like I have done here, but maybe just put in a 4-foot square raised bed this year to, expand the amount you grow for your family. This way you can actually start buying less from the grocery store and having higher quality food. So in this part of the presentation, I'm going to share with you guys the top 3 tips that I have so you guys can enhance your health through your garden. All right, my first tip for you guys is very important because you guys are gardeners. You select the crops you want to grow. When you go to the grocery store, right, you are dictated to the crops you will eat because you can only eat what they have available to buy. You're literally a slave to the industrial agriculture system that says we're going to grow iceberg lettuce, we're going to grow romaine lettuce, and that's what most of Americans get, right? If you just, choose to grow iceberg or romaine lettuce, right, that's a very low nutrition crop because you guys are gardeners. you have a choice on the crops you choose to grow. As you guys can see, I'm sitting here in my lettuce bed, and I have some standard romaine lettuce. I have some other, actually this is my favorite, Nevada lettuce. I have other deep red lettuces that are almost purple. And actually you can see here I have like a lot of mostly red lettuces. And that's because the plant that you choose could have more or less nutrition. So I always want to encourage you guys to grow crops and select seeds that have more nutrients than not. A lot of the common grocery store produce items are grown for storability and because people will buy them, not for their nutritional value. So I want you guys to grow varieties you don't normally eat or that are not available near you. I want to always encourage you guys to also grow leafy greens. They're some of the most nutritious, highest protein per calorie compared to even meat, as well as really rich in phytonutrients, can help you lose weight and heal from various health conditions according to science. And I want you, of course, to choose red and deeply pigmented crops, such as, think of John Kohler's red, and even this one's like really purple lettuces here. So next I want to show you guys like in detail how much more nutritious a crop can be by just literally selecting a different cultivar or variety of crop. So for example, compared to butter lettuce, which I have growing right here, right? Compared to red coral lettuce, which maybe would be like this guy over here, or my outrageous lettuce here, which is super red. You guys can see it has 15 times more polyphenols. Polyphenols are one of the many different phytonutrients, or I would say plant compounds that the plant makes to defend itself, right? Against the bugs, the stress, the predators, especially here in the desert, the heat, right? So look at it like, if you have a, more lighter color skin complexion, you're more likely to burn, right? Meanwhile, the darker lettuces, like people that have a darker skin complexion, are less likely to burn. That's why I like growing the deeper red colors. They're less likely to burn and get damaged and have more resilience due to these polyphenol, especially the anthocyanin compounds that have been shown in many studies to have great health benefits. Another comparison I want to show you guys is actually with carrots. When you guys choose to buy carrots, I encourage you guys actually not to buy the orange carrots. You could buy orange carrots, organic, pretty cheap at Sam's Club or Costco. But when you guys buy the carrot seeds, this pack costs the same as this pack here. And this pack here is actually one of my favorite carrots. It's a Carrots Black Nebula. As you guys can see, it's really deep, rich purple on the inside. Once again, this is higher in anthocyanin. As you guys can see in the slide, it has 4 times more flavonoids, especially the anthocyanins, when comparing the purple to the orange carrots. Another part of the study, as you guys can see on the screen, is actually they measured the total polyphenol content of the skin, but also the flesh, and the outer tissue has actually a lot of flavonoids. So I want to encourage you guys to not peel your carrots before eating them, especially if they're homegrown. So aside from selecting the right genetics, another thing very important to me that I have looked into in detail is how you grow. Now, of course, in most published studies shows that organic grown produce will have higher polyphenols and some of these plant compounds than conventionally grown produce. Now, why is this? This is because when, the plant is getting attacked, it needs to create defense chemicals if it's not getting sprayed with pesticides so that it can have more of these polyphenols that can protect it from bugs and disease. That being said, even if you have the best organic practices, including things like adding rock dust, which is I like to add, which has up to 70 different trace minerals, which standard agriculture may put NPK and then maybe up to 15 or 16 more, or even buying the best organic fertilizer. Here's a Dr. Earth's fertilizer that I also use in my garden. What's even more important than the growing practices is the plant genetics. Even if you have the iceberg lettuce and you use the best soil amendments, that iceberg lettuce is never going to have the level of polyphenols that red coral lettuce will have. This is why it is so imperative that I want you guys to select the most nutritious cultivars or varieties of crops. Generally, the most nutritious varieties of crops are the ones that are more deeply colored. So always try to select purple and red, colored crops instead of, green or orange. Not to say that we should exclude, white colored crops, because actually in the case of white peaches or nectarines compared to orange or the standard yellow peaches and nectarines, the white ones have more polyphenols, probably because they tend to get more of a red blush, which are more anthocyanins. So now I want to show you guys my second tip for maximizing your health in your garden. And I mean, the main thing that I'll say here is I want you guys to focus on growing perennial vegetables that can survive year-round in your climate. Generally, perennial vegetables have deeper root systems because they don't just grow as an annual crop, which grows, maybe during the warm season of the year and then succumbs to the cold, right? Perennial crops send down deeper roots, live many years, and can provide more nutrition. And, more importantly for me, the main thing about perennial crops is that they're always available for you guys to eat. The next 4 crops I will share with you guys can be grown in a zone 9, maybe a zone 8, depending on where you live or above. But if you're not in my zone, then I would encourage you guys to find perennial crops in your zone that can survive year-round where you live, because this assures that you'll be eating more often from your garden than from the grocery store. So you guys can see the example I have here of my arugula. Arugula is one of the first things to go to bolt or go to seed. And when the plant goes to bolt, it basically stops producing the leaves, which is what I like to eat the most. Of course, I will harvest the bolting tops and then I will steam them and eat them as well. Nonetheless, let's talk about my 4 favorite perennial crops that you don't got to keep replanting every season, that you could eat year after year after year. All right, so my number 1 favorite perennial crop that I encourage you guys to grow are perennial tree collards. So you think they may look like collard greens or some other kind of kale or collards you've grown over the many years. That being said, this plant is probably about 3.5 feet tall at this point. My tallest ones in my garden at this time are probably about 10 feet tall. They will grow multi-years and pretty much every day of the year provide leaves for you to eat. Whereas, with regular crops like kale or collard greens, you may be able to grow them. They're going to go to flower, stop producing the nice large leaves that we're all after to eat, and then you got to replant them. The tree collards can grow multi-years, and they're one of my favorites. The main reason why tree collards are my favorite is because they contain glucosinolates, which are, of course, in other brassica family plants, but in the tree collards, they're available for me year-round. Even in the hot desert heat of 110 degrees, they do better with a little bit of shade, although these days I grow them without shade here in the desert. Nonetheless, glucosinolates have been shown in published studies to help with liver detoxification, as well as be very powerful anti-cancer properties in the leafy greens. How I like to harvest these is if I have larger leaves on the bottom. When they get pretty big, I'll basically just chop these off, and like I did yesterday, I put them through the juicer to basically extract out all the nutrition out of them and leave behind some of the fiber. I will also harvest the larger leaves to chop up and put in the pressure cooker, as you guys will learn in a bit, to steam them. And if I'm eating a salad, then I'll just come to the tender young leaves here at the tip and harvest the little tip leaves that are a lot more tender and soft to put in salads. Whereas, the leaves, as they get more mature and older, get a little bit more firm. And if you guys do end up cooking these, I do recommend pre-cutting them first, letting them hang out a little while before you cook them. What this does is when you break open the cell or you damage the plant, right at the tear point, enzymes are released. And now the glucosinolates are converted through myrosinase to isothiocyanates, which is really the beneficial property of the plant. So this is very important. If you chew it raw, you're also going to make these isothiocyanates as well. So I encourage you guys to eat these raw whenever possible. If you do choose to cook them, chop them up and let them sit a while and then cook them. And then even better yet, when you're done cooking them, add in some chopped pieces of raw kale back to the cooked kale to have some additional enzyme activity so that you could get that conversion and get the most health benefit. My second favorite crop that's a perennial anti-disease crop, very easy to grow as well, probably easier than the tree collards that I just showed you guys. This is an allium family plant. Brassica and allium family plants are, in my opinion, some of the most health beneficial plants we should be growing and should be eaten on a regular basis. That's why my second favorite is the called Chinese chives. And if you can't find the Chinese chives, they're basically a flat leaf chive, so they're very mild. You could, of course, grow things like green onions or even eat your garlic scapes. But yeah, allium family plants, all the tops, actually, the cool thing is that they actually have more polyphenols and antioxidants than the bulbs themselves, because of course they contain the chlorophyll, they're getting the direct sunlight, and they're just not part of the storage bulb. All right, so I want to encourage you guys to eat your allium tops or greens. Once again, these are the Chinese chives. They are rich in sulfur compounds, as are other allium crops. And once again, on these guys, you want to chop them up. If you do end up cooking them, I like to put them in salads primarily. If you do end up cooking them, chop them up, let them sit a while, because the alliinase enzyme will basically convert and make more beneficial anti-cancer properties, like the cruciferous vegetables will as well. Of course, my favorite way to eat these, because they are so tender and delicate, is just break them off and eat them. Chop them up, put them in salads. Has a very mild, I'd say, garlic / onion flavor. To me, this is even a bit sweet. And of course, we are here in springtime. And so, you know, in the wintertime, they're not quite as lush. But now that it's spring, they're popping out. Maybe in the middle of summer, they may get a bit more spicy. And when your plants get more spicy, whether it's the tree collards or the onions, that's an indicator for you that these plants are now more health beneficial. So don't shy away from your plants when they get more strong tasting because of some of the weather stress or other stress they may get. I want you guys to embrace it. All right, my third favorite crop, you can see right behind me. It's in the one of the warmest spots in my garden. This is known as longevity spinach. It's actually from Southeast Asia. It's known as the anti-diabetes plant. I love this plant because I consider this a tropical that can make it when the weather is down to 33 degrees. If it gets down to 32, it's a goner, but many tropicals I also grow really don't like it below 50 or even 40 degrees. But this guy can surely survive as long as it stays above freezing. So I have it in the warmest spot of my yard. It's also known as the anti-diabetes plant, right? And it basically grows these nice tender greens that you guys could eat year round. And I mean, it's called longevity spinach. It can promote a healthy and long life. Really nice mild flavor too. I love the flavor, especially in spring when it's nice and mild. This can grow in full sun, also can thrive in full shade. Against the wall, it basically has a lot of shade down here. It's kind of growing better. And then in the summer, it'll kind of creep up the wall where I basically pin it to a trellis. It will not basically trellis itself, and it'll do great. How I harvest this plant is I basically just pick off the nice large leaves. I generally don't cook this plant. I usually always eat it raw in salads. You know, I encourage you guys as much as possible to eat things raw in salads. You know, the less processing you generally do to plants, the better and healthier it's going to be for you. Interestingly enough, these plants are only started from cuttings, so you're not going to find seeds for them. That being said, the easy place to get seeds for these are from Baker Creek, and they do sell some plants actually this time of year, around April, May, June, that they'll ship you, including shipping. So this makes it one of the lowest price places to buy some of these rare plants that I love to grow in my garden each year. My third favorite perennial crop that I want to encourage you guys to grow that does quite well in my garden are herbs. And in this case, I have mint. This is actually the chocolate mint. I have plenty of regular mint as well as herbs like lavender, which is actually edible, as well as rosemary and sage, as well as actually oregano that grows basically year round in my garden. So some of these herbs can be grown year round. Some of them are more seasonal, like I'm growing the basil behind me. But the herbs, you know, think about it, you know, generally herbs don't get a lot of pests. Why don't they get a lot of pests? Because they have essential oils. As you guys know, the essential oils, as well as other polyphenols and other bioactive compounds that the plants produce, right, repel the pests, but also they are nutritious for us. So, you know, most people don't eat a lot of herbs traditionally in the American culture. Around the world, they, you know, spice up all their foods with herbs. So I want to encourage you guys always to add some spices and herbs to your salads, to your soups, to different baked creations that you guys make. Even just coming to the garden and then sampling some. I mean, maybe before you go in and kiss your wife or husband. So you have chocolate mint tea, fresh, and that tastes delicious. Now the one caveat I want to give you guys for the mint is I want you guys to grow it in containers. Don't plant it in a garden bed. It will take over. And I don't want you guys doing that. The third and final tip I want to leave you guys today with, and this is probably the most important to me, is that I want you guys, after growing the right seeds, growing the right kind of plants, growing them in the best ways possible to maximize their health potential or phytonutrient potential, I want you guys to now process those foods in the ways to maintain the most amount of beneficial plant compounds when you ingest them. Surely you could grow things and then fry it in oil, and we know that frying things in oil is not the healthiest way to eat things. That being said, I've really focused on in my life, like researching and testing and doing the best ways to process your food at home to get maximum nutrition into you. So you want to use the best food preparation techniques to make the foods palatable for you, but also maintain the high level of nutrients when you eat them so you could have the greatest health benefit. One of the best ways to do that, and one of the simplest, honestly, guys, is just graze in your garden. I mean, how many times have you guys grazed in your garden? You're working in your garden, you're next to something that looks amazing, you just pick the little baby tender greens and eat it, and you're just like, I mean, I do that with my spinach every single year, and I eat my spinach, and I'm like, wow, this spinach is so sweet and delicious. You know, it doesn't even compare to the garbage stuff sold in the big 1 pound organic tubs at your big box store that tastes all chalky and just like not full of life and just mush. Like my stuff that I grow in my garden is crisp. I mean, also, of course, snack on tomatoes and other fruits and vegetables that you guys grow in your garden. You know, back there I have a whole wall of sugar snap peas. I could just snack on my sugar snap peas and snow peas, and they're delicious. I mean, another favorite way I like to do it is make a little guacamole or a little hummus dip or some kind of salad dressing and walk around with a little bowl of salad dressing, pick a sugar snap pea right off the vine, dip it in the dressing or the dip, and then eat it. It is so delicious, so nutritious. And make sure you guys chew enough so you guys get the best digestion and absorption of nutrients. So now I want to show you guys my favorite methods to process your food to retain the most nutrition. So while I have some appliances here that will allow you to maximize your nutrition, I mean, I'll say the best appliance that we are given free and clear from God, from nature, whoever you believe in, is our teeth, our mouth, right? We need to eat our foods raw and make sure you chew it as well as possible. You know, chew at least 20 to 40 times to turn each mouthful into a mush. Think about it. Why do we give babies baby food? It's because they don't have teeth and they can't chew, so we give them mush so that their body can absorb things from literally a liquid or a blended state. That's why we have teeth when we are adults. We should chew every mouthful into as small bits as possible. That way you're going to create the best system for digestion and extraction from your villi in your digestive system to extract the most nutrients out of your food. Of course, chewing your food also stimulates your jaw muscles and gets your salivary amylase going into the food, which can also further help digestion. So I don't want you guys to underestimate the power of chewing your food and chewing it very well as my best way to increase nutrition from the foods you're growing in your garden. All right, the next way I'm gonna recommend you guys get the most nutrition in you is through vacuum blending. I know you're thinking, John, I got a Vitamix already. I got a blender. Yeah, I blend stuff all the time. Yes. Well, blending things is great because you basically break open cell walls and get more nutrients in you instead of basically chewing like we should be to exercise your jaw muscles. When you do drink smoothies and other blended things, you should use your jaw muscles to chew it, or pretend to chew it anyways. That being said, blending has been around for like 100 years, and it's, in my opinion, outdated. The big challenge with blending is if you ever looked inside your blender, if you just fill it up with water, you turn it on, there's like a little tornado in the middle. Basically, as you're running it, it's introducing oxygen into your mixture that is bombarding oxygen into your phytonutrients and vitamins and minerals. Now, the oxygen-sensitive vitamins and antioxidants can be reduced due to all the inflation of the oxygen. In addition, because you're actually adding oxygen to your blended mixture, if you start with this much material, you end up with an extra half cup or more, because now all that dissolved oxygen is in your blended mixture, which means when you drink that mixture, you may get gas or bloating because now you're swallowing a significant amount of air. So while blending is good, I actually no longer recommend it, because in 2017, I was at a trade show where I saw a company from Japan who invented vacuum blending, which is what I have over here. This is basically a vacuum blender, and yes, you're seeing, yes, it's a Vitamix, but what it is, it's a special carafe for your Vitamix and a special lid. And all this does is this pulls out the excess oxygen out of the carafe before blending. Up to 70 to 75% of the oxygen can be removed using one of these devices before blending. So think about it, you have 100% oxygen here to bombard and oxygenate and add oxygen and air to your smoothies, whereas in the instance of vacuum blending, you only have about 20 to 30% of the oxygen left over in the carafe to bombard those valuable phytonutrients that can lower them. So we're going to throw up this graph right here that shows, some phytonutrients can be reduced by up to 50%, when you traditionally blend over vacuum blending. Unlike other things you got to do, that a vacuum blending upgrade is a one-time investment. So you invest in one time, and now all your foods, literally, of the oxygen-sensitive nutrients just got a lot more nutritious, up to 50%, or maybe even more in some cases. In addition, of course, you're not swallowing air, and of course, if you're into batch food prep like I do, you could do a big batch prep, blend it under oxygen, and then store it under oxygen with up to 80% of the oxygen removed, and you could store your prepared foods for up to a week without issues, so that you guys could get more of the foods you grew at home into. So to demonstrate this, I want to give you guys a very simple demo. So we're just going to go ahead and take off both carafes here. We got a standard Vitamix carafe here, and this is the Void Systems kit for the Vitamix. If you have a Blendtec, this lid will just fit on a Blendtec blender and then turn your Blendtec into an automatic vacuum blender. I'll put links to Void Systems down below in the show notes so you guys can learn more about this as well as get a discount coupon for $25 off if you're interested. Anyways, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and put even amounts of water into both blenders. We're going to go ahead and then put approximately 3 Roma tomatoes in each blender. We're going to then go ahead and put the regular blender carafe on the Vitamix. And now on the vacuum blender, what we need to do is we need to put this lid on. So we're going to lift up this little flap and put this lid on. Now we could close the flap. This is an airtight container. We could go ahead and turn it on. And now we're going to go ahead and press the go button. As you guys could hear, there's dual pumps that's come on that are now sucking the excess oxygen out of the carafe. You may see the number on the top is incrementing, and that's probably going to get to about 16 to 18 before it shuts off. When it shuts off, we know that the dual pumps have evacuated the majority of oxygen out of the container and is now ready for us to blend. So now we're at 18. It should shut off, and then we're going to go ahead and put it on the blender. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and turn these on for the even amount of time. All right, now we've turned them off, and I want to go ahead and show you guys the difference. All right, so first, we're going to go ahead and take this top off. Now on the Void Systems, what you need to do is you need to release the flap. Just to let the air back in, because once again we blended without the oxygen. Then as we hold up the flap, we're just going to go ahead and lift this lid off, which is a little bit tight on there. All right, next up we're going to go ahead and take these glasses out, and we're going to pour the resulting mixtures out for you guys. Same time. Can you guys see the difference in the mixtures? Right? I use basically the same amount of ingredients, same amount of water, and 3 Roma tomatoes. But yet you guys could see clearly on the camera, this one created more. This did not create food out of thin air. This literally added lots of oxygen, dissolved oxygen or bubbles into the mixture, which if you guys could look at the top of this, you guys could totally apparently see all the bubbles. In addition, if you guys look closely, you could see bubbles rising up out of the bottom, of this. So, this dilutes the mixture. In addition, this has a lot more air in there. You're going to get a lot more separation, and the blend will not be as consistent. It's going to be a lot more gloopy. In addition, because of all the air now, you're oxidizing the oxygen-sensitive nutrients. Whereas on this mixture, it's deep, dark red. Which one would you rather drink? More importantly, which one would your kids rather drink? Or they want to drink something all frothy and just not a good texture, or something with a nice, rich, deep texture. Also, not even talk about texture, let's talk about flavor and taste, right? When you taste this one, it tastes like tomato and water when you taste this one. Oh, It's just all frothy. Maybe if you like drinking the head on the beer, that's what it tastes like. But you guys can see literally instantly, just a few seconds later, we already have separation. We have the bottom separated out, the top layer, and this is still totally homogeneous. Also, you're gonna get better blends during vacuum as well. So, you know, guys, this is the difference literally pulling out the oxygen before you blend can make. Whether you guys want to get a kit like this, whether you guys want to do some kind of DIY thing and figure out how to pull out the oxygen on your own blender, I do recommend you guys doing it so you guys can increase and maximize your nutrition literally by using the same blending appliance. All right, guys, the next way I want to show you guys to process your homegrown fruits and vegetables, especially the leafy greens, is through juicing. Now, juicing removes some, but not all the fiber. It removes the insoluble fiber, but keeps the soluble fiber that is literally dissolves in the liquid. The main reason I see for juicing is that it allows you to concentrate nutrition because you're removing some of the fiber, and now your body has an easier time to extract nutrients out of that liquid. In addition, it allows you to process foods that you might not normally otherwise eat. For example, you know, you guys saw earlier my bolting arugula bed. This is the bolting arugula that I'm just gonna literally take and cut up into some pieces, and then I'm gonna basically put it in the juicer. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put this arugula in the juicer, and I'll be able to literally extract the liquid nutrition out of the arugula to get it into me. Of course, arugula is a brassica vegetable, very high in those phytonutrients that I talked about earlier. In addition, we got a whole bunch of collard leaves. Most guys or people wouldn't eat all these collard greens, but if we just basically chop these up, once again, we could just throw them in the juicer to make green juice. Now, a lot of you guys may not like the taste of straight collard and arugula. I don't think I'd appreciate it either. So we have an apple. We're gonna just slice up an apple to throw it in there as well. Add some sweetness, especially important if you have kids. You definitely wanna add more fruit if you have kids, especially if they don't like the taste of greens, or maybe even for you guys that have not juiced before and don't like the flavor of strong leafy greens. All right, so we're gonna throw the apple in there, and then finally, to add a bunch of hydration or liquid, and especially more minerals to the drink, we're gonna add some celery. The main thing I like about adding the celery is that it adds a lot of electrolytes, and most of you guys don't eat celery in any large quantity. This allows you to basically get more celery in you than you would otherwise eat, you know, and that's the thing about me. If juicing is going to help you and your family get more vegetables in you, especially out of your garden, than you would otherwise eat, it's definitely a good thing, because I know we've all had vegetables in our garden that we just don't end up eating, right? That's why if I have excess, I always end up juicing them. I can store my juices for up to a week using some of my techniques that I share. I'll have more information about that with the bonus that comes with this program at the end, all right? So let's go ahead and just throw in our celery in the machine. All we gotta do is shut the lid and turn it on. Now let me talk a minute about the juicer that I'm using today. I'm using the juicer, the Hurom H70. This is a slow juicer, runs at a low and slow 60 revolutions per minute. The reason why I like the Hurom H70 is because literally you put all the ingredients in there, you turn it on, and you can literally walk away, because now the juicer is doing all the work without you. You don't have to sit there and push ingredients in. As you guys can see, my green juice is coming right out, and we got the pulp coming out over on this side. All right, so as you guys can see, the Hurom H70 is all done making my juice. Just close the spout cap, and as you guys can see, all those vegetables, including the arugula bolting out of my garden that I wouldn't necessarily ate, has now been put into a green juice. Imagine you and your family having a green juice instead of a soda or other beverages. You know, things that you grew yourself now turned into hydration beverages with tons of phytonutrients to nourish you and your family, even help prevent, and in some cases even reverse disease, because they are some of the most nutritious foods, as you guys learned from Dr. Jeff. So let's go ahead and try this. Wow. I barely taste the arugula in there, guys. A little bite of heat. The apple gives it a nice enough sweetness. The celery is just very watery and adds a lot of hydration. And of course, those very important electrolytes for our health. Juicing, yet another way I want you guys to increase the amount of food you process and get into you in one of the best ways possible. All right, guys, the next method I'm going to recommend to preserve your food, if you want to store your food in case of the next pandemic or economic catastrophe going on, or even just for food storage for the winter, because a lot of you guys may not live in a zone 9 like I do where I can grow year round. You know, a lot of people have been dehydrating food for a long time, especially even in the sun, but I don't recommend that any longer because there is better preservation that can keep, once again, more of these high levels of phytonutrients in the food and make it available for us to eat. In addition, the freeze dryer that you see behind me, my freeze dryer, will allow you to store your food that you grew in your garden for up to 25 years. No other preservation technology can claim this that you could do at home. Literally, the reason why is because this removes so much moisture that the food literally does not spoil if stored properly in Mylar bags like I store all the food I freeze dry. The other amazing reason why I love the freeze dryer is because it does it at minus 30 degrees, so that's when it's super cold under negative pressure. So it literally sucks all the oxygen out of the chamber while it's sublimating out the water to retain the cellular structure and, more importantly, phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals, and especially the flavor of the food. So for example, I have some strawberries that I freeze dried right here. We're going to go ahead and open it up. I store these under vacuum. This is for short-term storage. For long-term, I put it in Mylar bags. And if you guys look, we could basically take out a strawberry and the strawberry is not collapsed. I mean, it looks like basically half a strawberry where just the moisture is removed. This stuff is a trip, guys. You could put it in your mouth. It crunches like candy, and the flavor explosion in your mouth is insane. Because the water is removed, all the nutrition and flavors are concentrated. So I mean, this is like the sweetest tasting health food money can buy. In addition, more mature stalks of leafy greens that you wouldn't normally eat, or even asparagus, once you freeze dry them, you know, the cellular structure is basically broken due to the freezing process. They almost just about melt in your mouth as well. Now, of course, there are many upsides with freeze drying. Like I've shared with you guys, the big downside is that it is not for everybody. It is for people that are serious about taking their health to the next level, especially having some food security, being able to store their food, and maybe even starting a business out of it, because people, when they taste it, they love freeze-dried foods. Now, there's many different brands of freeze dryers on the market. I will say I check them all out, and the only one I recommend for you guys, and the one that I use myself, is the Stay Fresh freeze dryer. Once again, check the link at the end of my special bonus for more information on the Stay Fresh. All right, so far you've learned the best ways to process your produce to keep it raw, so you're not heating it. Now I'm going to show you guys my favorite way to heat process or cook your food, right? I personally don't use a stove or oven that can heat things too hot, and you could lose a lot of phytonutrients, as well as, unfortunately, create carcinogens when you heat and cook your food, right? Whether you're baking at high temperatures or frying or even air frying, sauteing at high temperatures, broiling. These are not things I personally do, and I would recommend you guys against those as well. You know, the way I found to heat process or cook your food the best way possible is through simple pressure cooking, steaming, or boiling. These methods keep the temperature low, below 240 degrees, so that you do not create things like acrylamide and advanced glycation end products in your food. In addition, due to the cooking, you can make some foods that you wouldn't otherwise be able to eat, such as the chia that has, you know, basically toxins that are basically nullified by the cooking process. Same thing with like beans. You know, kidney beans, don't eat those raw, they could kill you, but when you pressure cook them, you remove and reduce the amount of lectins and other anti-nutrients in the food so that we can eat them and get the nutrition out of them. Now, the cooking methods, of course, I recommend are wet and at low temperature. You know, dry cooking methods, which include basically most ways people cook commonly, right, at high temperatures, create carcinogens, right? I just want to literally unlock the nutrition, blow open cell walls. That's why when you basically harvest some of your broccoli or some of the greens and you cook it for a short amount of time, whether you're going to steam it or pressure cook it, right, it turns bright green. That's because you're basically blowing open cell walls. Now the chlorophyll comes out, makes the food even more bright green, and that means that your body can now better assimilate some of those nutrients. A lot of you guys have heard if you cook carrots, you get better beta-carotene absorption into you than when you eat them raw. And yes, that is totally true. That's because the heating process can blow open cell walls and make more nutrients more bioavailable. That being said, you know, juicing and blending can also do this as well. Published studies show that juicing, you could actually create higher levels of beta-carotene in your blood. And they actually did a study with breast cancer survivors, who are either ate carrots raw or juiced them, and the ones that juiced them had higher beta-carotene in their blood. That can be very important for people, fighting any illness or disease. So, that's why I like heat processing my food. Now, if you ask me at the end of this, John, what's the best way? Because I just want to do the best. And honestly, I've looked at a lot of studies, and it's really hard to say that this one way is always the best. What I will tell you is that juicing, you will extract certain nutrients and assimilate them and make them more bioavailable better than chewing, blending, and pressure cooking. That being said, in some ways, pressure cooking will beat out certain nutrients, certain absorption methods in some cases, but then vacuum blending may beat it out in other methods. And of course, there is also a great benefit for chewing to make sure we get, more fiber, insoluble fiber in us, and maybe the food particles are not broken down as much. So in the end, I would encourage you guys to do a spread of all these. Juicing to me is a part of a healthy diet based around my garden vegetables as well as other fruits, vegetables, and other plant foods. And I also will vacuum blend, pressure cook, as well as freeze dry, which also blows open cell walls due to the freezing process and sublimation process during the freeze drying. So I encourage you guys to do all the methods and, don't gravitate towards one or the other, but try to do them all fairly equally, to maximize your nutrition out of your homegrown vegetables. So that brings us to the end of this episode where you guys learned all about the major factors on why gardening is good for your health. And I want you guys to incorporate all the ones that Dr. Jeff talked about, as well as the ones that I talked about. And to sum it up, number one, we want to grow a wide variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, especially ones that you haven't grown before. Number two, establish year-round staple crops that you guys can eat year-round without having to replant every season that has deep roots. Number three, minimally process your food to retain the most amount of nutrition that you've worked very hard to get to grow in the first place. And number four, I want you guys to be grateful every day that you wake up, because some people unfortunately did not wake up today. And so I want you guys to get out there and garden. And I think Dr. Jeff and I both have special offers for you guys that will be linked down below as a special bonus for watching to the end of this episode. All right, guys, so I really hope you guys enjoyed that episode today with Dr. Jeff and I'd love to hear your feedback. Which one of the practices do you think you are most deficient in? Which one of the things that Dr. Jeff said or I said are you gonna implement into your life to take your health up to the next level? I'd really love to know, so please put your comment down below. Also would love to hear if you guys enjoyed this format where Dr. Jeff and I tag team this so you guys could hear some of the best information. I mean, Dr. Jeff speaks of the whole picture, which is excellent, and then I kind of dive into some of the more specifics that unfortunately are not talked enough about in even just the whole plant-based diet or even raw vegan movement. If you guys enjoy this episode and want more content like this, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Also be sure to share this video with other people so that they could take their health, their life to the next level by hopefully gardening so they could even get healthier. Also be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you know on new upcoming episodes that are coming every 5 to 7 days. You never know where to show up, what you're learning on my YouTube channel to enhance your diet and your health. Make sure you click the little bell to get notified as my new videos come out. And finally, be sure to check your past episodes. Past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 800 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to you guys all about how to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and other plant foods in the best ways possible to enhance your life and your health. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.